Thank you. So welcome, everyone. This is our second community panel, and we appreciate the fact that you've volunteered to be a part of the panel. As we were talking about, and you've probably heard, this is being live streamed, and as well as being live streamed, it's being recorded. So we have a record of this proceeding. We also will have a written transcript that will be posted as well. So we're going to capture everything that everybody contributes to this meeting, and hopefully we will be able to use the information moving forward. I just want to say, while conflict is real and the issues are complicated, we know in New York that denial and avoidance is not a successful strategy. To that end, on June 12, 2020, the governor signed an executive order requiring each local government in the state to adopt a policing reform plan by April 1st, 2021. The order authorizes the director of the Division of Budget to condition state aid to localities on the adoption of a plan. And collaborative is the key word. It would be a mistake to frame this discussions as an adversarial process or an effort to impose top-down solutions. Issues must be aired, solutions must be crafted. The collaborative process should review the community served by the police agency and evaluate the department's current policies and practices, establish policies that allow police to effectively and safely perform their duties, involve the entire community in a discussion, develop policy recommendations resulting from this review, offer a plan for public comment, present the plan to the local legislative body to ratify and adopt, and certify adoption of the plan to the state budget director on or before April 1st, 2021. So that's our mission. All of you, I hope, are aware of our website that we've created. A lot of the information is on the website regarding the guidelines, as well as it also shows information that the sheriff has provided about some of what they're doing in terms of programming in the community and some of their policies and procedures. I also want to introduce Mike Benvenuto, who's chair of the Public Safety Committee and also co-chair of this committee, and Bill Hughes, who is a community member, a former supervisor, and has been a longtime advocate for having crucial conversations around these issues. And Bill is also on here, as well as the sheriff and some of his, Sheriff Bartlett, as well as some of his people. And last but not least, I want to introduce our facilitator, Newell Eaton, who will be facilitating this process. I'm going to turn it over. I've got to apologize because I've got to jump off this to go to another meeting, but I promise you I'll be reading the transcript and looking at the tape of this. But I want to turn this over to Bill Hughes, who wants to discuss a few things.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we've been getting a lot of questions around policies and the details of information. And so what we want to do is make sure if you have questions to please submit your questions to the website, and you can also have a chat along with on our chat that is available on the YouTube live stream. But as far as detailed questions, what we are doing here with these panels discussions, we're gathering information. We're trying to answer as many questions as we can. But when we address policy information, we want to go to the next panel, which is the police and elected officials panel. That's where the rubber will meet the road, and we start talking about specific policies and outline ideas that we're going to actually move forward. So we're gathering information right now. We're trying to answer as many questions as we can, but when we get into the real policy information, that will be done by the next panel.
Okay, and before we move forward, I failed to mention that there are three different types of panels. There's the community input panel, which is what we're doing with you right now. There is the elected officials and law enforcement panel, which is Bill just described. And then there's a plan review panel, which also will include 4 to 5, actually, I believe 7 community members are on that panel as well to review whatever the law enforcement and elected official panels develop. And then the plan review panel will put forward the actual plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to Newell. Newell, you're on mute.
There I am. Thanks, Matt. What I first want to say that I really want to honor all of you that are choosing to spend your precious time doing this here this evening. There are many other things that you could be spending your time on, and you're choosing to contribute to the community in this kind of way. And as well, those of you who are just listening in. So it's what I really think is fabulous that Columbia County as a group of officials are deciding to listen to the input from lots of you in this particular method that we're going to have tonight. And we've had one before, and we're going to have one afterwards. It's just a slice, because there's so many different people in the county that might want to provide information about this. And so there are going to be many other channels, as Bill was talking about, Bill Hughes was speaking. There's opportunities on the website to put your questions, your concerns, your comments, and then all that information will be coming together. But the specific purpose of this evening is to listen to 9 of you speak about both what your ideas are and your concerns are about what we could be doing to make Columbia County a better place. Essentially, that's and look at it from the law enforcement and police framework. That's what today is. To make this work well, we're going to impose a few kind of restrictions, and the biggest one is time management, so that each of you will be given 5 minutes to share what's on your mind, which, as we've discovered last time, with a few exceptions, is more than enough time usually. But to help you with that, I've got this little device here called a timer that, if you want, when you start talking, will go on for those of you that are speaking for 5 minutes. And when it gets to be 1 minute, it turns yellow. And then when it's over, a boing comes on, a sound comes on, and I will mute you at that point if you're still talking. Okay, those are kind of the rules of the game that we're going to play tonight in terms of this. Last time, it was pointed out by several people, I let some people go over, and I'm not going to do that tonight because I was informed that everybody needs to play by the same set of rules. So that's the way we're going to be working on it tonight. Okay. When each person speaks, I'm going to ask you first to introduce your name and where you're from. So that's in the transcript, because this information will be happening. And you have 2 choices. You could either just express what you've got written down or what your thoughts are, or if you want, you can ask me to engage in an interview process with you. Some people would rather be engaged in an interactive process for the 5 minutes. So that's a choice if you want that, okay, in terms of it. We're going to have 3 people speak, one after another, and then we're going to take a short break. And then we're going to have 3 more, a break, 3 more, and a break. And then if there are particular things that we want to talk about afterwards, then we can do an open forum after that. So I'd ask you to all to stick around, for that. Okay. Is that pretty clear? Any questions from anybody about what we're going to be doing? We're good. So the first person who's going to be speaking is Dave Hall from Ankrum. You're up first, and then Eddie Allen from Chatham's up second. And then we'll see if is Terry here? No, Terry hasn't arrived yet, so we may do some moving around. Terry Sullivan had indicated she would be participating. Can you guys hear me pretty well, or are you getting a reverb? We're good now? Okay, good. Okay, Dave, take it away.
No, you got to unmute. Dave, you got to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
You good
I
now?
see how I did it. Thanks a lot. So I'm Dave Hall. I live in Ankrum, where I write music, and I'm president of the board of Clarion Concerts, which presents classical music in the area. I grew up in the Hudson Valley, and my family has been here for 6 generations. My dad is from New England, where his English ancestors settled the Boston area, taking land from native people and enslaving Africans to work it. And by the way, Sheriff Bartlett, one of my ancestors, sold his orchard to one of your ancestors, and that guy went and changed the name of our pears. My forebears fought in every American war since the King Philips and have loyally served our nation since then. My mother, who grew up across the river in Saugerties, was the granddaughter of some of the first Arab immigrants to this area. My great-grandparents arrived in the 1890s and settled in Tivoli, and some of my cousins still live in Germantown and in other towns around here. I'm proud to be a member of the region's Arab community. I'm just as proud to be a member of the LGBT community, and I'm glad that we have a voice at this table too. I have family and friends in law enforcement. I've had extremely positive dealings with police as a victim of crime, most recently when someone stole my Black Lives Matter sign. The sheriff's dispatcher and the officer who responded to my call were courteous and professional and promised to log it as a bias crime. I've also had some extremely upsetting encounters with police in New York City, where I lived for many years. There, I was violently stopped and frisked, and my entire Arab American community was subject to racist and unconstitutional surveillance by the NYPD for years. Arab and Muslim Americans are among the most patriotic, highly educated, and well-to-do Americans, and the surveillance of our houses of worship, restaurants, and social organizations was not only an outrageous violation of our civil rights, but it was poor policing at its most glaring. Not only were there 0 credible leads generated from so many years and so many millions of dollars of wasted taxpayer money, but the program instilled a community-wide distrust of police and government that will take decades to diminish. You might ask, what does my experience in New York City have to do with Columbia County? The NYPD's reach went far beyond the city's borders, and I don't yet know if local police forces were complicit in singling out Arab and Muslim communities in this part of the state. I'd like to know if they were, of course. At the last meeting, panel members brought up concerns that I share. While I'm all for nurses and social workers being in schools before police officers, it sounds like the school resource officers are doing a great job. And as other panelists have suggested, that model can perhaps be replicated in communities. And funds for this and for cultural sensitivity and de-escalation training should be available. Overtime. If police work requires so much overtime that officers are doubling or tripling their salaries, we should hire more officers, not make officers work unreasonably long hours, getting paid with money that would be better spent on the sort of social services and organizations that were mentioned in the last meeting. The militarization of police. I view this trend with alarm. It's not enough to say that police officers are outgunned and need to keep up with the weapons that criminals carry. Some small town police forces don't need tanks and military grade weapons. And the use of rubber bullets around the US this past summer was outrageous. Rubber bullets kill and maim and should not be used against Americans exercising free speech. Tear gas is also an inappropriate weapon in a democracy. Police accountability. I learned in the last meeting that there is no independent civilian board to review complaints against police here. So it appears that Columbia County's police are policing themselves. Police are servants of the community, and if there are complaints against them, they should be made public. I believe we should consider establishing a civilian complaint review board. Over-policing and disparities in sentencing. We should find out why a larger proportion of Columbia County's Black population is arrested and why Black citizens are incarcerated at higher rates than white residents. This disparity is a problem that must be addressed. It may be outside the scope of this panel, but I hope our discussion of it will spur the county into action. These are my experiences and concerns as a native of the Hudson Valley and as a person with both inherited privilege, which still works for me if the lighting is right, and enough melanin to put me in the long line at the airport. I hope I will serve this panel and my community with respect and humility. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dave. Okay. Next, we're going to hear from Eddie Allen.
Hi, my name is Eddie Allen. I've lived here in the Chatham area for 13 years. I just want to say, listening to the panelists voice various viewpoints has been extremely insightful. And I'd like to offer a couple of ideas and conclude with a question. First idea has been talked about several different times, and I would want to emphasize again, it's about the engagement with the youth, the interaction with the youth to humanize and make a connection. There's so much uncertainty that lives in this country now that it would be a gift to reach out to these young people and ask. I guess what I'm trying to say, it's one thing to have interaction with children and them asking the police questions, but it would be such a gift for the police to ask them questions, to know what's living in their minds, what's going on, no matter what their age. I understand that you all have families, or the law enforcement have families of their own, but an outreach to communities they may not have a direct connect with would be really, like I said, a gift. And it would also be an investment in the future. Part of this is I grew up in Baltimore in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and I'm not saying the police are anything like that here in this area, but it seemed like their whole aim was to scare the heck out of us. As an adult, I've never had really any issues. The second idea, and I don't know, maybe you already do this kind of or use this kind of tool, and I want to call it a tool, and it's learning in an interactive reevaluation of how things are done. I just want to bring a couple experiences that I've had. I'm an actor, and more specifically, what I want to talk about is actor as a capacity in a corporate role playing with companies such as Shell Oil, GSK, and Baker McKenzie, which is an international law firm. And again, I don't know if the police department does this type of thing. I do speak English, by the way. These companies realize that a PowerPoint presentation and lectures are not enough. I don't know. I don't know if it's called police debriefs. It's only what I've learned on TV, and I don't know if that's real. These things what happens is they create scenarios, and you'll have a facilitator, and your peers will be around you. And in the situations, there'll be upper management that want to learn different ways of dealing with the people below them. And they'll play out the scenarios. And what happens is the facilitator might be recording this, and when it's done, the peers can put in their input as to what's happening, or the person that's just done it, or even the corporate role player might say, I felt like you were getting really angry and you really weren't listening to me. And this is a hands-on kind of tool that corporations and companies use, and also medical hospitals and stuff, and training their doctors. Just a suggestion. And finally, the question I had posed, and I want to pose again, this directive aside, I'm just curious, what law enforcement, what changes would you like to see? What changes have you been implementing? So anyway, and I believe there was an allusion to this in the beginning, and I will repeat in a way. From my perspective, any organization, or even an idea, has to have room to accept change. And I applaud you all for this. And thank you for your service to this community and this opportunity to be a part of a growth to a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie, for taking time to do this tonight.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. Next, Catherine. I'm going to screw up your last name, so I'm not going to try it.
Worries.
I apologize for that. But...
No worries. No worries. Good evening, everyone. I am Catherine Barafaldi. I've lived in Ghent for almost 8 years. My father was raised up in Washington County, well north of here. And though I was born and raised in Texas, I got back to the New York area as quickly as I could. So I've been here for about 8 years in Ghent. I want to just say thanks to Sherry for all of her work getting us organized and keeping us organized. It's no small task. And appreciation to Matt Morrell, Mike Benvenuto, and you, Newell, for keeping us on track. So I really want to echo, and I've now been impressed again with the panelists so far this evening. I've really been reflecting on how impactful all of your remarks have been last time and then again tonight. Even those of you whose views don't match mine, you've made an impression on me, and you've helped me think more broadly about what this group is trying to achieve. So thank you. I want to begin my comments here by looking backwards to the 1970s and the 1980s. It looks like most of us are familiar with those times, but if you're too young, you should ask your elders for some stories about what it was like in the 70s and the 80s. 40 years ago, drinking and driving was not a big deal. While there were a few laws on the books, they were rarely enforced. Drinking and driving was glamorized in movies, and it was condoned by spouses, and it was forgiven by law enforcement. Back in 1978, if Bob was stumbling out of a bar drunk to get into his car, people would probably not say much to him. And once he got into his car, he was driving home along Route 66, drunk, no headlights on. He'd probably get pulled over, and very likely Officer Smith would just tell Bob to put on his headlights and to drive straight home. It's just what people did, and people didn't think much of it. So why am I spending my few precious minutes talking about drinking and driving 40 years ago? Because it's a perfect illustration of this fact. Our laws and our law enforcement are a reflection of our society's values. In 1978, when Officer Smith told the clearly impaired Bob to just go on home instead of arresting him or impounding his car, it wasn't because Officer Smith was a bad guy or because our society didn't care about car accidents. It was a different time with limited understanding of just how destructive drinking and driving was. But then our society's values began to shift. A group called Mothers Against Drunk Drivers started organizing to change the laws and law enforcement and sentencing and public perception. Today, drinking and driving is no longer socially acceptable. It's much more heavily enforced by police officers. And it's because we saw that people were dying and we wanted to prevent these accidents. We knew that it wasn't okay, so we changed our values and we changed our systems. Law enforcement and the justice system can and should change as our society becomes more aware of itself, which brings us to today. It is still true that our laws and law enforcement reflect our nation's values. It is also true that a Black person in America is 3 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than their white counterpart. It is still true that while drug use is about equal among Black and white Americans, Black people are twice as likely to be arrested for drug offenses. And as Reverend Singletary mentioned at the last session, Columbia County is only about 5% Black, but our Black citizens account for 24% of our arrests. Now, this is not necessarily because police officers are consciously biased or because our nation is deliberately racist, but these outcomes reflect our values, whether we like it or not. Fortunately, just like our values and our views changed around drinking and driving, our values are also changing around racial bias in law enforcement and justice systems. Our society is changing right now, and that's why this panel was assembled, and it's why we're here tonight. We now have the awareness and the data to help us see that we need to make changes that will save lives. We just have to have the courage and the commitment to follow through. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with this panel.
Thank you, Catherine. I think we're going to take a 5-minute break now for you to just really think about what you heard from each other. We finally got the bomb. I haven't let it go before. I'll set it for another 5 minutes, and when we come back, the next person we're going to hear from is Joan Hunt. Okay, great. Look forward. So let's just get up. It's probably good to get up and walk around a little bit. Maybe get a glass of water or something while we're waiting.
starting with the Rockefeller drug reform victory and around that time. And since then, forged many partnerships in law enforcement with nonprofits and individuals directly impacted by incarceration. I personally, I want to share a little bit about our work with the Columbia County Jail, and then go into some areas that we still have a lot of work to do around. But we started in 2016 a initiative with the Columbia County Jail called Enhanced Child Visiting. And I want to acknowledge Sheriff Bartlett and his team for taking on this initiative and really working to shift the culture within the Columbia County Jail as it pertains to children visiting their incarcerated parents. So what this program does is allows children that have parents in the jail to come and visit without a glass barrier or partition, and really be able to sit on their parents' lap and hug them and engage with them and have a meaningful visit. I think we often don't think about the consequences of incarceration on children. And so 1 in 14 children in America have been impacted by incarceration at some point in their lives, the incarceration of a parent. And so this program actually was a leading example all over New York State and the nation. And Sheriff Bartlett and I spoke in front of all of the New York State sheriffs, and are proud to say that other county jails have since adopted a similar program. And so since 2016, we've served hundreds of families, sometimes once, sometimes for many years. And it's been a huge shift in the way we think about the impacts of incarceration on children. I want to acknowledge that because I think that it demonstrates there is room for growth. I also want to say that we have a lot of work to do around broadly thinking about the collateral consequences of incarceration and policing on children and families. One area that has come to mind over the years has been the impact of no-knock drug raids or no-knock warrants on children. I have personally witnessed the aftermath of drug raids on families that I'm very close to. I've seen homes completely ransacked by the police where nothing was found. I've seen children come crying to me that their favorite, whatever toy was destroyed, or their clothes dumped all over the floor. And so it's sort of a side of law enforcement that we don't always hear about or see, but I think it's come to light recently with the Breonna Taylor killing. And just wanted to bring some attention to that. There are over 20,000 no-knock warrants conducted every year in the United States. I know some of those are happening here. A neighbor of mine was just raided less than a week ago. And I just want to say that I think there is much more work to be done there, and the ways we can do that differently. The city of Albany has adopted a policy called Safeguarding Children of Arrested Parents. So additional work is done to ensure that there are no children in the home present at the time of a drug raid, because that is extremely traumatizing and damaging to children, to be woken up at 5 a.m. to a bang, and then watching their parents be taken away in handcuffs, and then having to go to school that same day and focus and function. And so I think my perspective here and what I bring is just really taking a step back and looking more broadly at the impacts of incarceration on children and families. It's not only the individual that could be potentially committing a crime, but those consequences go far beyond that. And so I know I have 30 seconds. My concrete recommendations here are really to look at how we reimagine no-knock warrants in our community, implementing some policies to safeguard children of arrested parents, and continuing to build, I think ways that we can build on relationships between law enforcement and families is really through maintaining connections between incarcerated parents and their children. So thank you for having me, and look forward to working with you all in the future.
Thanks, Joan. And if you do have other ideas, it sounds like you might have a few, please put those in writing or make sure they get into it, because these are the kinds of things we really need to hear from. Really appreciate that. Okay. Next is Ed Simons. Am I saying your name right, Ed? That's right. You're on mute, Ed. You're going to need to unmute yourself. I can't unmute you. You have to do it yourself. You're not here yet. Okay. You're still on mute, Ed. Let's see. We can't hear you yet, Ed. You're still on mute.
Ed, you need to hit that little red microphone button. Do you see it on the bottom of your screen? Or somewhere on your screen? You just click on the red button. Should be red. It's a microphone.
Ed, can you hear us?
He's on there. There, Ed, did you find the button yet? No, he's still looking. Okay, there's a button. There should be a button, a little microphone with a line through it. No, we can't hear you, Ed.
I had to take my cursor down to the bottom of the page to bring the microphone up.
Yeah, Ed, move your arrow down.
See down at the very bottom of the page there. Oh. Am I hearing you now? You need to turn up the volume. No, you're not on.
No, he's still not talking. Ed, we can't hear you.
Oswaldo, is there anything we can do about that? Okay. Why don't we move on and let's see if we can set him up to come on a little later, okay? I know he must be pretty frustrated, and we want to make sure everybody gets a chance here. So, okay, Lori Johnson, are you ready?
I am.
All right.
I'm Lori Starks Johnson from Chatham my whole life. My forefathers are from Chatham. So I grew up in this little rinky-dink town and this little county. In 1979, I had a biracial child in Columbia County, which was quite a feat in itself. I have dealt with prejudice and discrimination my whole life here as a white woman married to a black man. My son is 40 years old. My daughter's 35. I have a two-pronged approach here. I had to have conversations with my children that none of the people here had to have, except for possibly Mr. Hall and Mr. Hughes that I see on my screen. I had to explain to them how to interact with police, because I find many of the police in this county are very young white men who have very little life experience. They haven't traveled far and wide. They don't know customs and just different things of other cultures. So they come into this job with a very different view on life than if they had been in a multicultural situation. I think that needs to be addressed before they get put on the street. It's something that needs to be addressed in police school. They need to be taught cultures and customs. It's important. My second pronged approach is the mental health issue. It's my opinion that all police need to be trained in SCIP training. SCIP training is strategic for crisis intervention, and it's proactive. If my daughter works with autistic adults, men who are twice her size, she can take one of them down with safety, put them on the ground, and get them under control so they do not hurt themselves and they hurt no one else. My daughter is 5'7". Every single person who works with disabled people in this state has to take this class every year and learn these techniques. Every single person who works in a hospital that has a psychiatric unit also has to have this kind of training. It's only common sense that our police force should be trained how to use these kind of techniques as long as there's not a gun involved. There's no reason for anyone to be hurt in a takedown. It's not necessary. People that are disabled and developmentally disabled, they don't know how to calm themselves down. And yet these techniques work. They work, they keep the workers safe, they keep the people safe. It's a 3-day program. It should be taught in police school, and they should have the refresher. Well, you have to have the refresher every year. And I think that it's just something that should be done. I really believe in that. I worked in the healthcare field a long time. I've done those kind of behavior management. It used to be called BMAC when I was there. As of today, I am 58 years old. It was BMAC when I was there. It's called Skip Now. It's not hard to do, but it will save lives. And I really do believe that our young police officers, because many of them are very young with little life experience, they need to have more cultural training, whether it be going out into the community, speaking with Bangladeshi people and understanding what their culture and their things are about, or coming and talking to down at the high rise with people who live there and what their culture is about. If you've never been around it, you don't know what it is. You only know what you've learned as you live. And that's all I have to say. And I thank you all for listening to me. And I'm glad I was chosen for this because I've lived here my whole life and I've seen both sides of the story. I've been on both sides of the coin. And I can tell you, this county is full of people who discriminate and are rude to people of brown skin and color. And that includes many of our police officers, many. And I know them myself and I'm familiar.
Thanks, Joan. Thanks for your comments.
Oh,
And again, if
Lori.
you have other things you want to offer, please write them down or get them up on the website.
That was Lori.
Oh,
That was Lori.
Lori, thank you for correcting me. Okay. What I suggest we do, let's hear from Joel, and then we'll take a little break, and then let's see if we can get Ed set up to come on after the break. Okay.
Thank you.
Joel, would you say where you're from, your name and where you're from before you speak?
My name is Joel Dislin, and I live in Spencertown in the town of Austerlitz. Can you hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
I am very grateful to have been selected to serve on this panel, and I hope my brief comments provide thoughts that are useful and benefit the process. Beginning 35 years ago, when I joined the Board of Supervisors, I had the opportunity to learn about our law enforcement agencies and all the associate departments that work together to serve our residents. In part, because of my experience in supervision and management in my day job, I was selected to serve on the legal committee and several other committees and subcommittees. I even served as chairperson on the county government committee. One particular subcommittee was entitled Negotiations, and I represented the Board of Supervisors at the table. Sitting at the table at different sessions were deputies and corrections personnel. Each had separate contracts with the county. I quickly learned that we were not sitting across the table from one another, but actually sitting on the same side of the table, looking at what was upon the table from different angles. Negotiations were not all about wages and fringe benefits, but also about job security and a desire to protect and serve our residents. They were interested in advancement prospects based on their performance, and they wanted to be in a work environment that encouraged good performance and respect. I was pleasantly surprised to learn this about our employees, and they very quickly earned my utmost respect. It seems to me that most candidates who seek employment in police work do so with a desire to serve and protect, and that is exactly what they do once on the job. There are always a few, though, who have other motives for the reason to gain employment in law enforcement. Those individuals tend to have aggressive personalities and begin to demonstrate undesirable characteristics. Working together with their respective union officials, we need to weed out those individuals as quickly as possible. This is where pre-screening is so important. And the most important is periodic evaluations. And I know pre-screening and evaluations are ongoing. I point out too that evaluations are usually not pleasant experiences for the employee or in fact the evaluator. And sometimes we merely go through the exercise to get it over with. This is the area wherein lies my greatest concern. In reality, considering promotions, retirement, disability, and resignations, a deputy, for example, may, over the years, receive an evaluation with several different supervisors, and continuity could be sacrificed. I am not saying that I have a solution for this scenario, but I am suggesting that it may need to be considered. From my experience, I have learned an employee's immediate supervisor is the best one to do the evaluation, for she or he should be monitoring performance on an ongoing basis and making corrections to performance as required. Formal training in the evaluation process could be offered if it is already not in place. As far as I'm concerned, one of the most important roles of a supervisor is to monitor performance of those under his or her direction and to report his or her supervisor in any and all discrepancies. In closing, I wish to commend our sheriff and all those who serve under him, along with the police departments that cover our towns, villages within the county for serving well the residents of Columbia County. Their budgets are tight considering the services they provide and the state and federal mandates they have.
Thanks, Joel. I cut you off because you're running over time. So, thank. Okay. And if you have other things that you'd like to offer, like everyone else, please add into the website. We'll talk a little bit more about this. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll
I
come
think we've
back.
got we do have, I think, Mr. Simonson on the phone.
Okay, hold on, guys.
we-
Newell, Oswaldo's gonna call Mr. Simonson into the meeting when we come back from the break.
Okay.
Okay, so Ed, we'll be in touch in a moment, okay?
5 minutes. Okay.
Thanks, Cal.
We'll see you all back in 5. We
Yes,
now
they are.
have-
Everybody's back and ready to go roll.
Okay, let her roll. Ed,
We-
say where you're from and what your name
Oh,
is, and then we'll let Pep.
I won't forget that as soon as they're ready.
We're
I'm
ready.
I'm Ed Simonson. I represent the town. Who's talking? Represent the town of Kinderhook. Certainly, I'd like to say thank you to Chairman Morrell, the Sheriff Bartlett, for constructing the panel and including me as one of the panelists. Please understand that I am an outsider, absent the knowledge you have acquired after many years of dedication to our community. For that commitment, I applaud each of you and express thanks. My suggestions or questions regarding law enforcement may therefore appear old hat and off course. First, I must say that I found the 8 pages of reference outline of New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative to be both informative and thought-provoking. Oh, the time to discuss each of the items and develop consensus around identified issues. What then is the objective for community law enforcement? What are reasonable expectations? What changes might expand agents of law enforcement's purview and success? Stepping back may be worthwhile and should identify some local challenges to quality survival in Columbia County. A partial list, I know I can't see it. A partial list of impediments to that might include financial inadequacy, the undernourished, substance abuse, suicide, lack of marketable skills, enormous historic loss of employment potential, emotional instability, housing costs, educational shortfall, gladiator, you're going to like this one, gladiator sports worship, parenting skills, availability of weapons of lethal injury, the pandemic, lack of a feeling of interdependence, unhealthy exposures, and more. Who do we look to for reinforcement of acceptable behavior? Behavior which society has collectively defined as acceptable. Are these limits overzealous, or should we look the other way? I would submit that the major public concerns law enforcement presently has appears to be the use of physical restraint and the application of deadly force. That's my view. Here's some recommendations to address the above. Incorporate policies found in the Task Force on 24th Century Policing, 4 Pillars of Procedural Justice, as well as Sir Robert Peel's 9 policing principles. Accreditation, here's a good one. Now, the county has engaged in accreditation processes, and they should be applauded for that, because there are a minority of police forces in the state of New York that has engaged in that those actions. And what I would like them to do is memorialize them, so they happen every 4 years, every 5 years, or whatever. The other thing I suggest is for the deputies to be visible, to be available, check out citizens, knock on doors, have a presence in the community, provide incentives for furthering deputies, educate. This is back to the administration. Provide incentives for furthering deputies' educational experiences. Equip each officer with body cameras and ID labels. I don't know if they have them already or not. Review requirements to become a deputy and provide them with ID labels. Review requirements to become a deputy, to raise them where appropriate. Provide diversity of officers. Diversity not in gender. Okay, beyond that. Collaborate with county agencies to aid in concerns for mental health. Lastly, watch for acts this is environmental. Lastly, watch for acts behavior which is detrimental to the environment. If in doubt, contact DEC or environmental conservation officers. Holy smoke, I had so much more. I might add, if the phone is still on, I have lived in 5 communities in my lifetime. One is the city of Mount Vernon. That's where I spent half my childhood. And the other half was in rural Kinderhook, where our neighbors farmed with horses. And we actually had a dirt road. So we've come a long way since then, I suppose. Are we better today than we were then? No, very frankly, I don't think so. I really do not think we're better. I think we've gone backwards. So I don't know what Billy thinks of that. But anyway, thank you. Thanks for providing my ability. And I hope people could understand what I was saying. This is a very important. Oh, one thing I like we want to institutionalize, all right, our county sheriff's department. I am not a proponent of disassembling them or reducing.
Thanks. Thanks, Ed. You're a little over time, so I cut you off. But please, you have a lot of ideas there. Let's get those sent in for consideration in what we're going to be doing here. Okay. Let's pause for a moment. I'd like to hear from any of the members of the panel members who, if any of you have questions of anybody who's spoken, Bill Hughes or Dave Bartlett, or anybody from that group, if you have questions of any of the folks that have spoken.
I do know. Thank you for asking. Thank you for all you speakers. You were absolutely wonderful. I certainly appreciate the input. I want to speak to Joni Hunt if I could. I'm not sure if Joni is still unmuted or not.
People can unmute themselves. Yeah.
Okay. So on the no knock, and I was waiting for someone to bring this up on the no knock. I think that is a really important aspect, and I think that we should have more elaboration on that. And I would like to hear Joni expand on her conversation about no knock, because I really think that outside of all the arrests that we're seeing that are disproportionate in the county, when we get to the actual arresting of people and the way we do it, you're starting to see the impact in our youth communities. And I think Joni really touched on it. And I just want her to elaborate on that and some of the other things that she had after that, if she could.
Joan, are you with us? Yep. See, she took herself off. Nope, she's still on mute. She may have stepped away, Bill, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. If she come back, I'll re-ask it again. No.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
I think it was, we already heard from 10 people previously, and tonight there were additional ideas and comments, which is great. And obviously some people were practicing with the clock because they were right on the money. So I think we heard a lot of good, more discussion again this panel. It's awesome.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
So, Joni, what I was talking about is the no knock, and I was I want to emphasize the importance of us addressing the no knock situation and the implication of what that looks like when it comes to affecting our youth. I really want us to stress that point, because I think it's very important when we're talking about law enforcement. So if you could talk about that, and then a couple of the other issues that you had following that, because I know you had some other things to mention.
Sure. So I think, there's lots obviously going on nationally around this issue. There are cities and counties completely banning no-knock warrants. And my thing is that the investigation and research that goes into a drug raid, most of the time can uncover whether or not there are children present in the home at all. So I think that's one place to start. Albany has gotten really creative around the time of day that they do raids. And I think doing them differently. So they'll think of ways to make sure the children are out of the home. And also I think it's important to note that, like, when we think about the SWAT team and deploying the SWAT team, 80% nationally of the SWAT team is used for drug raids. And the rest is, you know, for hostage and active shooter situations and really high level incidents that we would think to, you know, deploy the SWAT team for. In our community, granted, there have been incidents, you know, that are super dangerous. A lot of the time, I think there are ways to uncover illegal activity and arrest people without doing these violent raids. So that's sort of my recommendation there. One, really understand who's in the home, whether children are present. Try to do these types of activities when children aren't there. And then on the, if they do have to be there, figuring out a way to support the children. And that is work that we've started to do. There was a program we launched a couple of years ago called Handle with Care, and the sheriff was involved in that. And essentially what it did was, if there was a child in the home or a child that witnessed a traumatic incident, law enforcement would contact the school before the next school day and let them know, like, hey, this kid is coming to school, may be super tired because they were up all night, may be acting out because they just witnessed a traumatic incident, handle them with care. So work has begun around that issue, but I think if we can avoid it altogether, that would be even better.
Great. Thanks, Jill. Okay.
So on top of that, no, if I could we bring the sheriff into the discussion? Because
except we'll go there, but we just had Terry Sullivan join us, so I want to make sure.
Let's say that for the ending.
From her, okay?
Yep.
Welcome, Terry. I know technology is wonderful when it works, isn't it?
I'm so sorry.
No
I apologize.
So just to give you the short story here, you have 5 minutes to present your ideas, right? In terms of the time here, in terms of your speaking, but after that, please submit anything more than that in writing, and the panel here is really looking forward to hearing from you. So I've got this big old clock here, so you have some idea what 5 minutes is, okay? And I will cut you off after if you go much over 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Is that for me? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So if someone could just catch me up for a few minutes about what the previous discussion was about. Yeah.
What we've been doing is each person has had an opportunity to present what they think relative to this idea of police reform plan, ideas that they think are important to consider in terms of it. And so we've heard from 9 other folks before you who've presented with a couple of breaks. And now we were just starting to do a little Q&A.
Oh, okay. All right. I apologize. This is actually the first time hearing about this. So I'm Terry Sullivan. I'm on the Copic Town Board. I'm also on the Taconic School Board. And as far as the school is concerned,
Terry, are you outside?
Yes, I am.
It's a little windy. We're getting
with your
doing the wind, right?
Okay. So let me try to go in my car. I was actually just teaching a class outside. So as far as let me see if I can get in my car. Hold on.
Yeah. We'll give her a moment to get settled in there so that we can really hear her.
So is this getting any better? Is this getting any better?
That's a
No.
So anything that we can do as far as the town and the school, is that better?
this for a moment. Okay.
Okay. As far as anything that we can do to support law enforcement, I think is extremely important, both the, at the county level and also as far as the school is concerned. And funding for that. Where is the funding coming from? I'm getting some problems with the signal here. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you pretty clear.
Okay, good. So the school resource officers, David, did you get a chance to speak about that, or is that something that's on the table for right now?
Right now, it's just panelists giving their opinions and offering their suggestions as far as what we can do to make the community and the sheriff's office a little better.
Okay. So this past weekend was a perfect example. We had a function here at the park, and obviously doing with the COVID situation, things are very challenging and have been very challenging for these past couple of months. But the sheriff's department helped participate, and we had an event at the park here, and they were very, very supportive. Giving out candy for the kids during Halloween was a great idea. The trunk and treasure treat was an excellent idea. I think that getting, just in general, getting exposure for the sheriff's department to the kids, to the town is the best thing that we can do, because you guys do such a great job and present such a good image and models for definitely for the children, for the kids for sure, in the school programs. And as far as the town is concerned, I think just the visibility of the sheriff's department and getting involved with whatever functions that we have is extremely important. The substance abuse programs, the mental health programs that you all help the community with. And again, over the summer, you were wonderful. We had an interesting situation over at Copake Falls, where we were inundated with people visiting from all over the place, but a lot of out of area people coming, and we had like 1,000 people in Taconic State Park and visiting Bash Bash. And I can't tell you how much we really appreciated the input from the sheriff's department coming and helping us manage just the massive amount of people. And just that was tremendous, and that was much appreciated at the town level for sure. And the next day, I had contacted some people. I know that Jeannie contacted some people, and the next day you were there, you had signage, and it really helped manage the droves of people that we had over the summer. So, there's people in the community that are coming up from the city primarily, or from out of areas. There's a lot of second homeowners. I think, can you hear me? Everybody's kind of blanking out here.
No, we can hear you.
So I'm one of those city people, by the way, who moved up here as a second homeowner and then full time about 18 years ago. And you don't realize that the sheriff's department, the towns don't necessarily have local law enforcement, fire departments as well. It's just not something that you think about moving up here. So visibility is extremely important as far as the sheriff is concerned, and the police department. I know several, it was, I think 2008 when we lost our local Copake Police Department. And that was a huge hit for our town. So the sheriff was extremely important and helpful in helping us deal with the local issues, problems. And they're right there. Our local deputy, Officer Kilmer, anytime you contact him, he's there for us. He's very involved with the community. He knows the people here. But this influx of people from out of the area has just been a huge problem. And anything we can do to help you or just to communicate, I think is extremely important.
Great. Thanks, Terry.
Sure.
Okay. Back to what we were doing, was asking any of the members of the panel if they had questions of the folks who are presenting tonight. And Bill, you were asking stuff of, Joan Hunt. Are there any, Mike, you really spoke to you're seeing the value of getting all this input as we start to do stuff.
Yeah,
Sheriff,
Newell,
go ahead.
I just wanted to see if we could check with Osvaldo and see if everyone's been transcribing what they've been saying tonight, if that's been working. I know we had a problem last time with one or two people.
Right. In other words, are people saying it at a pace that we can understand?
Yeah.
Because what each of you have been saying is going to be converted into transcription format, so that when the panel starts to look at all of the material, we can see what are the different. Make sure we've got all the ideas down there for consideration. Right. Good point, Mike.
So no, if I could,
Bill.
I know we're going to be coming up on time, but I would like to engage with the sheriff about the no knock, if I could.
Sure.
Okay. So Sheriff, Joni brought up about some interesting points on some of the processes that other towns and other cities are looking at as far as no knock. What I would like to know and I know it's not just the sheriff's department, you guys are part of a drug team. Are you guys reevaluating the use of no knocks, and if not, I certainly hope that we're going to engage in that conversation under the next panel.
Yeah, every time we do a warrant, and as you said, we work with several different agencies. We work very close with the City of Hudson Police Department, the State Police, smaller town PDs. They aren't really too involved as far as with the drug stuff. Greene County Sheriff's Office, we have a multi-jurisdictional unit between Greene County, us, and the City of Hudson. As far as no-knock warrants, there's always a threat assessment done whenever we do a warrant, and to determine the threat of the warrant. Has there been past history, are there guns, are there children, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all taken into consideration, whether or not there's going to be a no-knock done, or if a tactical team is needed, because if there's known weapons inside, or the person has used weapons before, then that would knock the threat assessment up. And it could be more dangerous for the officers. The last warrants we just did now was, we actually did a couple last week, and we recovered 4 illegal handguns. 2 of them loaded, locked and loaded. And if somebody was in the bedroom where they were, they could have shot right out the window at the police officers. So there is an assessment done. I really can't get into too many of the particulars. But we always look to see, number one, are there kids? Number 2, past history as far as weapons and violence and so on and so forth.
So Sheriff, could I ask, given that it's not just an individual agency, in that particular team, who would conduct that assessment?
The team leaders conduct it, and ultimately the bosses look over the assessment before any type of mission is done.
Okay, great. And hopefully we can, when we get to the other panel, we can have a lot of discussion on that.
Yeah, when we get later on where that fits. Great. That was a new one.
I just have a question. Currently, do you take children into consideration, and do we have a process where you try to go there when they're not home?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we always take children into consideration. The whole program that Joni was talking about, that we started out with City of Hudson, where if there were kids and they happen to be there, we notify the schools right away. I work real close with the schools. I try to work real close to schools best we can. And anytime we have an incident with a child, I try to always notify the school officials. So we do handle them with care. That's what we call it. But the next day, because you don't want a kid coming in and people not knowing what's going on in their life if they had something traumatic. It could very well be a car accident. It could be something bad happened at the house that night, above and beyond just some type of a search warrant. And so having a school resource program, and I was the chairman of the Safe School Committee for many years. And we've got a great working relationship with the schools.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yes, you do. I just wanted to say a tremendous relationship with the school. And I know I hear it, from being on the school board from Neil Howard. We can't thank you enough. And our school resource officers have been wonderful in dealing with the kids and some of the issues that we've had in the past, obviously with the Zoom and the remote learning. There's been a little less trouble in the schools, but we appreciate everything that you do for Kind Kills.
Okay. Anything else before we call it a night here? We're going to be meeting again next week for the third panel, right? And that's up online with in terms of the specifics of that. So those of you who are even here tonight, if you'd like to participate in that, you can through the live stream and see what's going on there. And then a week or so after that, the group from the county officials and the sheriff department and other police get together to start putting together the plan. We have somebody else who wants to talk. We have.
Can I just remind everyone that please, if you do have more comments or any other questions, to get to the next, the law enforcement elected officials panel, please send them to me at the PR panel email address.
Good. Okay.
And
Well,
I just want, I got a couple people who texted me, looked like they were drinking a beer. I am not drinking a beer. It is an energy drink.
Yeah,
Blood
right.
Orange energy drink.
A Bud Light, he said.
Well, you could have that drink and wish me a happy birthday.
Oh,
There
happy
you go.
Happy
birthday.
birthday,
Happy
Lori.
birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you.
A fellow Scorpio.
Can
I
I
like
mention, next Thursday, by the way, we have our Copake Town Board meeting on Thursday night. So I don't think I'll be able to participate, just to let you know.
Okay.
It's not next Thursday, it's next Friday, Terry, and you can watch it live stream.
Oh, okay.
It won't be open. There'll be a different panel on that evening.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Did I get those messages, Kelly?
You should be.
Yeah, Terry, I've been emailing you all along. You should have gotten all of that stuff.
And have I responded?
No, but not everybody has.
I think we're calling this meeting complete. You can hang out and do whatever, but
Okay. All right. I'll make sure to look out for that in the future. Thanks. I apologize.
Okay. Thanks,
And
everybody.
I would like to add, Newell, I would like to add one thing before we get off. As you can see, we're all a little rough looking. And if you can see the deputies on the street.
No shave November.
No shave November. You got it, Lori. And we've done this about 5 years now. We've raised over $25,000 for the Columbia County Community Cancer Fund. So just a little plug for them. If you ever wanted to find out more, you can get a hold of Claire Pardee down there at 325 Columbia, and it's a great program, and they're always looking for donations. So that's why you'll see the deputies starting to grow beards.
Okay.
Awesome.
You're covered. Okay. And you will become covered. Anyway.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.